Welcome, everybody, to another edition of BTS Live. That is Behind the Scenes Live, episode number 32. Now, normally, you guys know I have my partner in crime, Mark Rogers, here every Thursday night. But Mark is traveling today. So I said, well, what am I going to do? Do I do a show? Do I call it off? Do I, call out the National Guard? Do I call Donald Trump? I don't know what I do. So anyways, next best thing to Donald Trump. I knew you would love this. We have the one, the only, Stephen Heywood with us. Stephen, I'm a little shocked. Stephen, you're not in your normal habitat.
Yeah, I'm in my second favorite habitat, actually. I'm out in the great outdoors here. So I hope my video is coming in good, and I hope the audio is coming across really good as well.
Yeah, I think we can hear you pretty well. That's pretty good. I mean, it looks good. Looks like it's a nice day out there. And we know you, Stephen, for the techbuzz.net. It's the network that you run. And you have a couple shows that I'm familiar with. The weekly roundup at Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, Tech News Roundup every Monday. And you also do a show on Tuesdays, Broadcast Now. I'm frequently on there as a co-host, and we talk hardcore broadcasting, and that's all tech and video related. But Stephen, I mean, this doesn't look like you're in your studio. You're not fiddling around with 18 different controls. I know that when I'm on your show, you're like trying to get things set up, and there's always something going on, and this and that, and it's and I'm always amazed at how you can do everything, switch the show, be a host. But there's obviously another side to you here. Why don't you tell everybody what's going on?
So for those that don't know, I mean, I'm an outdoor enthusiast. I like doing things outdoors, hiking, walking through the woods, hunting, fishing. And a lot of you that follow me, you know that certain seasons I take some time off, as the guys are saying in the chat room. They're stating that, catfish, I post a lot of things. That's something that I do. It's a release. It's something that when you're dealing with tech all the time, Marty, it's hard to stay in tech all the time. I mean, it can fry your brain. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to go out and hunt. I like to go out and fish and live off the land. And I'm embarking on a new journey. It's almost like I'm starting all over again with a couple of buddies of mine who are very knowledgeable in the outdoors. And we're starting to build a brand called Arrow Pullers. My buddy Floyd Pizer and Drew Schaefer, you guys know him as the Drew the Barbarian if you've seen the episodes. And we're really trying to get out there and teach people, kind of like what I do with tech and broadcasting, teach people how to do these things outdoors. I mean, if you ever thought about getting into fishing or hunting, this is the age, Marty, where you look to live video and even recorded video for these types of answers, right?
No, absolutely. And I think what's interesting.
Hey guys, welcome to another.
Oh wait. Oh geez,
That wasn't me.
That wasn't me. That was me.
I think my father-in-law's playing with his phone again.
That was me. Oh wait, hold on. Now here we go.
Marty's playing all kinds of tunes over there.
Anyways, but you bring up a very good point, Stephen. Because it's such a juxtaposition between technology and the outdoors, and certainly getting away from it a little bit, and because I mean the stuff that you deal with, with the technology, getting your shows ready. I mean, we went through it on Tuesday on Broadcast Now. You, me, and Mike, we showed our setups, and they can get pretty complex. A lot of wires and a lot of boxes and things like that, and a lot of troubleshooting lots of times and a lot of things to deal with, even beyond your control. So I think that, that interest that you have of being in the outdoors, I mean, that's great. I mean, that's really a departure from what you normally would think of, that you would be into,
It's one of those things like, I'm very blessed to say that I have family that has property, that has a lot of property, so where we can hunt and do things like that, and I can raise my kids not just sitting there playing with technology. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love technology, But there's so many innovational things that I can do in the outdoors world, and most of those, when you think of somebody that's in the outdoors, you think of rednecks, you think of people that are not really tech savvy, and let's face it. And so when people see that I like to do these types of things, they're just like, well, there's something wrong with that. I mean, you're a geek, you're a nerd, you're not somebody that should be out there up to your arms and elbows and fish guts and deer blood and, you know, things like that. Not to get grotesque, but I think it's a side that people aren't used to seeing me at. And, you know, I've only been hunting for 4 years because I didn't have the property growing up and we didn't really have the area where you could hunt. But I've fished most of my life. I mean, growing up, I mean, that's what we did. That's what we ate most of the summer. And so this is a great opportunity that I'm learning from guys that have been doing this all their life. And we're starting now to document it, you know, all the way from, you know, harvesting the animal to cleaning the animal, to even how to cook the animal. I mean, because these are things that I never knew. And I thought, man, this would be awesome if we could do a brand or a show or a recorded live show, if you want to even call it that, on this type of thing, using the technology and the skill level that I have in broadcasting and kind of roll it all together because, you know, Marty, I have a huge passion for broadcasting. So why not put the two together and just run with it, and that's kind of what I've been doing.
No, and that makes a lot of sense, and we'll certainly get into that a little bit more as far as kind of combining interests. I don't know what's going on with my machine, but something's going on with my MEs. That's why I'm switching this. So, what I want to do next, Stephen, is I want to show a quick clip from your show, and hopefully this will work because there's obviously something going. Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. Hold on one second. Let me just close that. Okay, I think I got that. So I want to show a quick clip, give people an example of what Arrow Pullers is all about. And it runs about 50 seconds. So at least it'll give people an opportunity to see, you know, what is Stephen doing? What is going on with this? What is this Arrow Pullers stuff? So let me go to that now, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Arrow Pullers. Today we want to focus on fishing, and this is the time of year where we get to go out in the boat and catch some really awesome fish. And what we're focusing on right now, this is early in the season, it's warm, it's mid-June, early July, and we were hitting it hard. The catfish in the channel started running, so we started to fish for those channel cats, and we have some interesting techniques. My buddy Drew and myself were out there catching some really nice sized ones to get some really nice fillets, and we're going to show you a little bit of that. All right, so we're working with what? The floating jig head in a pretty big minnow. And
wow, Stephen, and that's just a quick glimpse as far as what you've been up to with the show. And that's from episode 2. So again, you're just getting started with this, but I think you now this is not necessarily a brand new project. You've been working on this for a while, right? I mean, as far as the website and maybe some other videos that you've been doing, and obviously it's been passion for quite a while.
Yeah, this is something that I've kind of been doing. I guess for the last year, I've been working at it. I've been doing the website, getting the logo together. I mean, when you're doing this, essentially, when you're doing all the technical work, and you're the one that knows how to do this, so you got to kind of go slow with it and make sure that you're doing it correctly, and you like what you're doing, and you like the logos, you like these things. I mean, we're just now rolling around to getting t-shirt designs and pricing on stuff like that we want to brand ourselves, because we're going to go out to some different events and stuff, trade shows for the outdoors, and kind of get out there, like Scott Wilkinson said, you want to get out there and mingle with people and let them know that you're in the industry. But everybody makes a mistake when they're starting out. They just want to run and just go pedal to the metal, and then they mess up. And I learned over the last 10 years with the Tech Buzz that you can't do that. And I've been slowly just kind of chipping away. And like you said, it's episode 2, because Marty, I'm venturing into uncharted waters. I'm doing a lot of post editing, which everybody knows watching the Tech Buzz. I hate editing, but I'm taking the creativity that I've learned in my head from doing live video production, and now I'm bringing it into a recorded world to where I can make something that looks like a television show.
Yep.
but for the outdoors.
You know, and it's funny because you showed me that second episode, and I know that editing, you know, live shows, as you know, live shows and edit shows are two different animals, really, two different types of projects. And you showed me that show that you were doing, and, you know, you could tell, like, you were talking about, you know, taking the skills you already have and not necessarily being an experienced editor, but your pacing and your experience as far as putting a show together, even at the live level, you could, and again, you have a lot of inspirations as far as other outdoor shows, and I think a lot of it is, you know, again, being observant to what's out there, you know, so, you know, not necessarily copying, but you know, becoming, you know, inspired by other things. So your interest is outdoors. You're probably going to watch other outdoor shows, and, you know, you kind of pick up, okay, it's kind of what are the kind of things they're doing, kind of things they're covering, and just even looking at the pacing, and I love. And I'll give you an example. I mean, you did the open. You come on camera. You introduce the segment. You go out, and you actually have the segment. You know, this particular episode was covering catfishing, and you know, it was great because, you know, you had Drew there, and you were mentioning to me too. It's funny because you're doing it as a group project. Now, Drew, one of your partners in this, is not necessarily a natural on-camera performer.
No, not at all. Drew, there's a reason we call him the Barbarian. So we're like you're saying, Marty. He's not an on-camera personality, and one of the things that I just told him, I just said, hey, just be yourself and explain it the way you would if somebody was asking you how you would do this. And so we kind of positioned it where I knew I was going to be in studio because obviously I live here and I have a studio. I would be in studio narrating the whole thing, kind of like I did in that episode, and then he would be like the teacher mentoring the student, even though in all essence some of the stuff he's telling me I already knew because he showed me years ago, or he showed me, you know, a while ago. We're kind of approaching it, Marty, to make it like you, the guy behind the camera, is the person, the audience, asking the question, being on the boat there with us, and having him be the guy that's got the experience explaining it. And you know, I think it works.
Yeah, you know, it's funny when you told me that he is not experienced at all, or he had no desire to be on camera. I mean, he loves the outdoors. You can tell he knows fishing, but I think the way that you kind of direct it, and that's a good lesson here, because obviously you're very experienced as far as putting the show together. You're very comfortable on camera. You've been doing it a long time, and it shows that you were able to kind of work with him and make him, you know, feel comfortable enough to be himself on the boat. And you could tell. I mean, I was just watching that first episode, and you could tell he was authentic. That's the real him, and he felt very comfortable, and that's part of the deal. I mean, it's supposed to be fun, you know, and to bring him up, I imagine when he first brought this to him, say, oh man, I don't know if I want to do this. This is like, this is not my, I like fishing, you know, this is not my, but you would never know. I mean, he was really good. I think also, you know, we talk a lot about when people want to start shows, you know, picking out things that you're really passionate and really interested in. Because if you're going to put a show together and you're expecting to build an audience, it's going to take a long time to do that. And just like when I asked my friend Mark Rogers, when he started his college football videos on YouTube, asked him two things. I said, Mark, are you really interested in this? And are you willing to do this for free for a long time? And when he answered yes to both, then I knew that, okay, this makes a lot of sense. He knows that it's going to take a while. He would do it for free anyways. And the same thing for you. I mean, you tell your story even on the tech side, but, you know, we were talking before the show as far as your launching this new project, knowing full well from your tech experience to build any kind. And I think also, listen, this is a really good niche. It's a it has a lot of passionate people in it, and you can certainly build noise. But you're not kidding yourself. I mean, you know, it's going to take some time, certainly.
Well, and here's the thing, you know, I think there's so many people, you know, there's so many people out there who think that they're owed a chance in a certain particular niche just because they start liking it, right? Like, for instance, I've been doing broadcasting almost 10 years, and we all know that story, and I'm not going to regurgitate it. But starting out in the outdoor industry and the goals that we have, and I say we, my partners and I, because this is a team effort. You know, even though I've got a lot of the stuff behind the tech scene, I rely on these guys for the knowledge that they bring to the table, and so we're all kind of equal partners in this. But we know it's going to take time because nobody knows who we are. And just because I'm big in the tech world doesn't mean I'm going to be big in the outdoors world. And I think so many people get frustrated starting out because they think that it should be one of those instantaneous things. Well, you should know who I am. I'm the tech buzz. You know, in the outdoor world, that means nothing because I'm not going to be able to sell RAM and things to the outdoor world and maybe broadcasting cameras, but computers and whatnot, you know, it doesn't mean as much in the outdoor world because everybody's using GoPros and camcorders and things like that, and cameras are important.
Yep.
But I think that the way we're trying to do it here, we're taking the approach, as you've stated many times, slow and steady wins the race, and that's the approach we're taking. We're just getting out there, we're creating the content, we're putting it out there, and allowing word of mouth for people to hopefully see what we're doing, like what we're doing, and be able to enjoy the things that we're doing, because we're going to do it irregardless if we get 100,000 people following us or not, because this is a passion that we have. We love doing it, and we figured, well, why not document our journeys, right? Why not put it down on video, since we're in the video era?
Absolutely, and I'm smiling here because in the chat they're having a lot of fun in the chat room, and I have to give Tommy a ton of credit because early on, this is way back in the chat, he guessed the magic secret today of where you're at and kind of your location there. So and again they all then all pile on and picked up on it. And now they're all discussing how the video loop is, and you know it's only, you know, it should be all this stuff. So they're giving all kinds of critiques in there because Tommy, it's a sharp group in the chat room. We were discussing before. It's like, okay, you know, Steven obviously is set up to look like he's outside, you know, so that's the set that he uses in arrow pullers, you know, as far as his on camera portions of the show to make it look like obviously he's outside. So Steven, I mean, I think this is probably a good segue to get into some of the technical things, since we have a very astute chat room, very astute viewership here. They are not going to be fooled at all. And we were discussing, Steven, remember before the show, it's like, okay, I wonder if we'll get through the whole show with people not guessing, because you spent a lot of time.
We got almost a half an hour.
Well, I will say, I will give Tommy credit. He guessed pretty early on, as far as
he says supposedly I'd let it slip earlier, so I'm not exactly sure.
He watched the pre-show probably. So he was studying the pre-show.
Oh, he was listening. Yeah, okay.
What are you gonna do? You know.
Well,
so
it happens.
So it's interesting because this is a similar set that you. Well, I think it was a different backdrop that you use in arrow pullers, right? Is that the same background that you use in the on-camera part, or am I thinking something else?
This is different. This is actually different, and this is actually, you know, really cool because the way the video works is that, you know, when the sun goes behind a cloud and it darkens down, this gives that illusion like we're standing outside, and you'll see this video loop kind of go behind. And Tommy made reference to that the water loop is a little bit short, and it's because it was a last-minute setup that we had to do because of the way my TriCaster feeds Marty. He wouldn't get the sound from it. But it's not that it's short, it's just the program that I'm playing it in to play that loop is adding that 2 seconds or whatever. But I figured it wouldn't matter because I figured it would sound like something's cutting it off or something,
yeah.
You know, when you're talking or whatever. But the lav mic, you can actually, you know, I use this on my iPhone. You can go out there and connect this to the iPhone. But Marty, if you want, I can show some of the magic of what I'm seeing. Since this is a broadcasting show, right?
Absolutely. Why don't you take it away? And it's interesting you bring it. Before you do that, it's interesting you bring up the lav mic, because this comes up in a lot of our shows as far as these microphones. And just a quick word on that, you see a lot of lav. I was wearing one during Broadcast Now to show my set because I was walking around. And again, you see this a lot on TV shows because, you know, TV studios and these situations are optimized. And you see us using these big microphones here, And the reason why we go for the bigger microphones, the large diaphragm microphones, is frankly you're going to get better sound quality. And we're more of an interview. We do more interview style shows, so we're kind of more radio and TV. But in your case, the lav mic makes perfect sense because it's a whole different show. But why don't you get into a little bit as far as kind of some of the tech and some of the things that you're using to kind of give it a realistic flair and realistic look.
So most of you don't, well, maybe you do know, maybe you don't know if you've seen my video tutorials. I have another side to the studio. And I actually have, this is actually, you know, what I'm looking at right now, as you guys can see. I have a monitor that's all the way far left that's showing me what Marty's sending me. I have the chat room on a big TV right in front of me with the 2 cameras that I could switch to. And you're saying, well, why do you have 2 cameras on you, even though you're just doing a single shot as a guest? And it's like I was telling Marty, and Marty's like, I mean, that's what professionals do. You have a second camera just in case one camera dies. You got to plan for the unexpected. I would hate if I was on a show with Marty and all of a sudden it just died, you know, the camera. So I can quickly dump to that other camera, and it's the same shot. It's slightly different. And then the farther TV that you can kind of see behind the other camera tripod that's there is what is going out, what we call program out. So that is essentially what's going, what I know I'm sending Marty with this. So now, for everybody else, the other side to all this is this shot, where you can see I'm right here. I'm in front of the green screen here. And you wouldn't think by looking at it that that's where I'm at. And I actually have, I'm controlling the TriCaster. I have an iPad app that remotely wirelessly controls the TriCaster. So I can actually control my TriCaster from where I'm sitting. And you know, when you go to this shot here, you don't think that he's sitting in a studio. And Marty helped me out, because Marty does a lot of, you know, post editing. Helped me out, gave me a little blur on that video to kind of give it the depth of field, to make it look like I'm standing at the bottom of a waterfall. But these are the types of technology tricks and tips, I guess you would say,
yep,
that we're trying to bring to the outdoors, because we're taking an ordinary studio, a studio that I do shows, and I made it look like I'm completely somewhere else. And Marty, you do that on my show all the time. I mean, you're in front of a virtual studio.
Yep.
For that show, just to kind of give it a different look than what you would do for BTS Live. And I think it adds a whole new dynamic to the show, right?
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned like you have using the green screen technology. I use that in your shows many times. And again, it's just a different look, you know. And you know, when you see it, just the green screen there, it's like, oh man, it's like it doesn't look anything like what you would normally see on the screen. And again, it's all the combination of things, right? So I think, Stephen, you make a really good point as far as if you were just to put up that video in the back and it was crystal clear, there's no illusion there as far as depth. And that's kind of a little insider secret, because I see a lot of people, when they do the green screen, they'll find a background and they'll just pop it up full resolution, full sharpness, and it looks like it's a green screen because there's no illusion of depth. So the same thing with when I have my set. Now, I have a couple of different looks. So I have a gray, like a beige curtain back here as my base background. And for BTS Live, and mainly I do it because of limitations I have in my switcher. So I only have a certain amount of layers that I can do. So I use a very simple background. It gives me nice contrast with the 2-box. And I just use some uplighting. I use very simple lighting. My objective is nice, even lighting, not a lot of shadows. I'm not a lighting wizard by any stretch. It's a very simple lighting setup. I know Stephen does the same thing in his studio. It doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be complex. It more has to be even, has some definition. I'm using a light up here, a light over here to give a little definition. And the light in the back especially helps because it gives definition to the background. So for me, even though my background is not blurred, it separates me from the background a little bit more. It gives me that definition. So that's kind of important too. But yeah, as far as my green screen effect, it's actually a piece of video that was actually pre-blurred. It's a stock piece of video that I use from a service I belong to, and it's actually pre-blurred. And because it's set up to use as a background, so it gives that illusion of depth. So that's something that if you guys do use green screen, that slight blur, and I think that the level of bird depends on how much depth you want to simulate. That's just a little tip, certainly. So.
Well, and I think people that they know my sound, right, on a microphone, and coming through with a lav mic, I'm probably going to sound a lot better than most people in a studio with a lav mic because I have the soundproofing around me. I have a lot of fabric and stuff over the windows. And the other thing, Marty, is a good key. As you can see, I'm very well lit. I have a good key. To the average person that doesn't watch what we do, and maybe they've never seen me before, they would really have to ask is he on a green screen? But they know the quality level that you and I bring to the table and what we're able to accomplish. And I think that, like you said, it's really hard for those guys to be fooled when it comes to this because they know how much trickery, I should say, we have. But that's the cool part about it, because I can take something that they see every day as having this really cool background and doing tech and like you do, and come out here and do outdoor stuff and make it look like I'm standing in the middle of the woods talking. I mean, this is what they use on the Outdoor Channel. These guys aren't outside all the time. They're sitting in a virtual studio narrating what they're doing out in the field, and that's all I'm trying to do with that. But again, it's knowing your craft and knowing your tools, right? Because we get a really good key, we make it look good, and use the equipment that we have.
No, absolutely, and the chat room is going crazy here. The tip about blurring the background is important because it gives that realistic feel to it. But yeah, you raise a good point. I mean, you're trying to simulate that. You kind of trying to dial it in. And the other point I would make is a good analogy is when you go to a movie that's especially heavy with special effects. My opinion is it's a successful movie if you don't notice the special effects, if they blend in. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, Stephen, with our setups. I mean, we're trying to have a nice, clean look, well designed, well put together. One of the things I see, I think, with people just starting out, especially when they get some video toys like either software switchers or green screens, is and this is totally normal. You tend to try every toy in the box. And you're not really thinking about design, and we talk a lot about clean and simple. I always talk about that. Start clean, start simple, and then kind of work your way up. And even goes to like the transitions, right? I mean, I noticed in your show, I think it was cuts and dissolves. I'm not sure if there was any DVE moves.
No, I mean, everything that I'm doing is just like I would do on my show. I mean, it's rare that, on my show, sometimes I'll add some really cool transition effects. But even when I was showing here and I was switching from camera to camera, I'm using cuts and smooths transitions. But I mean, being on the show, you made a lower third for it. But I could ask the chat room, I mean, if you were into the outdoors, you would sit and watch a show with just the background that I have here because it's so clean. And my video because it's so clean, and I could do the whole show just like this without any kind of muck, any kind of hashtags and all this other stuff all over the screen. Sometimes less is more, and even on these interview type shows, I mean, your background's clean, my background's clean. We've got a nice double box, but that's for aesthetic purposes. But we're not over complicating the quality level. But our graphics, they look really good, and it's everything's simplified. I mean, I could have put some guy running behind me that in a loop that's chasing like an animal or something, but it kind of takes away from the effect that you're trying to do. And I want to look as professional doing the outdoor stuff as I do with the tech stuff. And my guys know that. They know, and they're like, hey, we're just going to leave the tech in your hands.
Yep.
And they let me run with it, where I rely on them more so with the stuff that I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, and I think you raised a real good point there, Stephen, as far as it's very difficult to do something really good alone. Having that team where, you have a couple guys there that aren't the tech guys, aren't the video guys. So everyone brings something to the table. So obviously you're bringing the video production side to the table. You have Drew, who's obviously an outdoorsman. I'm not familiar with your other partner. I'm sure I'll see him in future episodes. Though those guys are the more the outdoors guys, and they have their specialties. You certainly bring that to the table as well. And then together, it's just like working on TV. It's very much a team sport, or even when, today, this show would not be possible without you on here. Even it's great having you as a guest because you bring that extra dimension as far as being able to show your studio. When I went to your shot, you were able to switch around. So we're kind of using two TriCasters, kind of teaming up together for this show and kind of showing what you're doing with this new project. But I mean, that's another thing, especially with folks that are looking to start shows on their own. I always think, it's always easier with the co-host. That's why when I started, I got Mark involved. Mark brings a whole different set of tools to the table. He's an on-camera guy, so I don't have to train him there. But he's not necessarily a tech guy. So we kind of combine our resources. So I think when you find partnerships, if you can be complementary, that's always a good thing to kind of search out.
And there's a lot of things that you can learn from somebody doing an outdoor show. I mean, you don't have to be into hunting and fishing to enjoy something like this. Like, here's an episode that we're going to be working on for the future when I get back from my business trip. My other partner, Floyd, he makes his own beef jerky out of deer meat and any kind of wild game. And I'm sure I could ask everybody in the chat room, they've either eaten beef jerky or love beef jerky, and I'm sure that they would like to know how to make beef jerky, and we're going to show that. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to use wild game. You can use beef, and we're going to document that. We're going to do it on video, and we're going to put it out there and show you the tools that you need to make yourself some beef jerky, or once hunting season comes around, how to make wild game hot dogs and not buy the crap that is in the store. Like if you're into making your own type of like if you have organic meat, or you get meat from like we get it from my wife's grandfather's farm. He doesn't feed his cows and stuff hormones and stuff like that, so it's good stuff. And so that's the type of stuff we're going to be showing. It's not always just hunting and fishing. We want to show you when you're walking through the woods, what things that you shouldn't touch if it means getting poison, or maybe you see wild berries, and how you can live off the land if you were ever stuck in the woods for something. Maybe you're on a trip and you get, I don't know. These are the types of things that these guys excel in. And I'm learning from them, but I'm also bringing to the table a lot of knowledge in the video and broadcasting and editing world. So, like you said, Marty, we all complement each other. We're all friends. And it's something that we all can do together and enjoy together. And I don't know, man. I'm excited for the journey. And I'm glad that everybody gets to see this and see the progress that it's going to take to get where we'd like to go. And if we don't get there, I believe we'll get there.
Yep.
But I'm content. I'm content with at least continuing my journey, and if not, learning as I go. That's the main thing.
No, absolutely. And it's funny. I got to point out Ross in the chat room there. And I think it's let's see, Dave the Tech. He was fooled for a few minutes, and then he figured out that it was a green screen. And Ross was kidding around. Is that a green screen, or is he outside in the woods? And I think for a moment there, I think people had to do it. I think it's great that people at least had to think for a moment because of the effort you put in there. And again, you're trying to make it look real and look complimentary and blend in. And obviously, it takes time to kind of build that out. And we're talking about, like you were talking about, the bigger outdoor shows have these great virtual sets, and they got the big time equipment, and they get all the time in the world to do the lighting right. It's a very precise game to be able to do that, and longer video loops and all that stuff.
Well, and that's the thing, Marty. They tell you not to wear ball caps when you're on camera, right? I mean, try getting lighting on a green screen with the subject wearing a ball cap to where you can still see his eyes and his face, to where it doesn't look like he's got a shadow from here up. These are things that people don't take into consideration when they're doing a ball cap. I mean, most outdoors guys, they wear ball caps because it keeps the sun out of their eyes when they're hunting, when they're fishing. It's a good place to keep your license if you're hunting, or excuse me, if you're fishing. And so I had to embrace the environment, right? If I would have just came on here like I normally did, my hair done nice and come on here, it just kind of takes away from the whole effect of the woods behind me.
Yep.
But you're fighting all those elements on top of that, as opposed to shooting outside, because your lighting's positioned certain places. You have to use extra lights because you don't want the shadow, but you want to make it look natural to blend in with the background lighting. And like you said, it took people a few seconds to really look at it and say, is that a green screen, or is he really there? That to me means I've accomplished what I tried to do.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned the lighting, and I know that you worked hard on, kind of giving a little bit more harsh lighting to kind of simulate the sun, and maybe even getting a little hot spot there, and that's going to make it a little bit more look a little more realistic versus a nice, like my lighting is a little bit more even because I'm in a studio. Of course, it's going to look like that. But I mean, with your lighting, it makes sense to have that kind of like little hotter where you have the and you did a great job. And you mentioned you were in the cap and it has a build, and you can still see your face because of the way you're positioned and you're set up for that. But for you, it's a little harsher light, and it gives that effect of, okay, you're out in the sun and all that stuff, And
I will say the perspiration in here, that's real. That's not makeup or anything. I mean, it's hot. It's summer. Usually there's an air conditioning unit sitting right next to me, but I turned it off so the lav wouldn't pick it up and you didn't hear it in the background.
Absolutely.
But a lot of the changes, Marty, that a lot of things that you have to deal with outside, like when you're in the studio, you can set up a tripod with a camera on it and you rock and roll. When you're on a boat, this is a whole new world for me. I mean, trying to get footage, not having a cameraman while you have an animal on the end of your pole, a fish, and you're telling, like when Drew and I are doing it, I'm like, okay, Drew, just keep pressure on him, hold him while I get these cameras turned on.
Yep.
And he's doing it. He's keeping it, letting the fish tire himself out. It's not just like when you normally fish. It's like you hurry up and get that fish in. We're timing it more.
And you bring up a very interesting point about filming on a boat. You being a video guy now, you must have like these incredible cameras and this crew out there. You must have extra help with extra camera people and these big shoulder mount cameras, and your video quality is really good. So I mean, and kind of direct this to people that may have similar interests, may want to do a show. Now, a lot of the shows, and a lot of people that are in the chat room may do shows sort of like this, where it's a studio setting where you do interviews. But now, we're talking about your show. It's outdoors. You're filming outdoors. You're filming in kind of less than optimal environments. So, and I was surprised to hear kind of the equipment that you use. And I think the people that are watching the show might be a little surprised as far as maybe how accessible that is, and maybe it's not so out of reach.
So one of the things that we do is one of the biggest things is trying to use what we have, right? And I've got cameras in the studio that are $2,000, $2,500, all the way down to $800. And the biggest thing I don't want to do is, because they're not waterproof, is take them on a boat where they potentially can fall in the water. So what's the next best thing I can do? Well, there's GoPro. And I have a GoPro. I have a Hero 3, which is one that I'm using. It's in a waterproof container, and I hook it on to, we have a top that goes over to keep the sun off you on the boat. And I have it mounted on there, so it shoots the back half of the boat to where if you're fishing on one side, you can get everybody on that side. And then I have another GoPro knockoff. It's not even a real GoPro, and I got it on Amazon for $65. It does 1080p. Also has a waterproof container that I have it on the other side. But you want to know what my main camera is on there, and the main camera for the audio? It's this right here.
Wow.
It's my iPhone.
That looks like an iPhone, right? iPhone 6S?
The 6S Plus. This is the camera, and this is the audio that you're hearing. I don't have any lavs on Drew. I don't have any lavs on me. We're using the audio from the iPhone, and if you've listened or watched that show, it probably blows your mind, because I was even floored at how good the audio sounded from the iPhone. And if you listen to some of the shots that we did with the GoPro, the audio is not that good. I mean, it's decent, but it's not that good. But I was able, Marty, to take the whole thing like you're doing, you're switching between a 2-box, your shot, my shot. I was able to do that and compose that inside of, Final Cut and make myself, make it like a show, a switching show. So that's the biggest challenge I would have to say when you're on a boat, is getting good audio, and I still need to dial that in, but I'm already looking at ways, Marty, that I could get one of them GoPros in the water so you can see a fish coming up as you have them on the line, and then have a tripod that's mounted with one of those cameras. But basically, I'm doing all the filming. I'm doing the filming, and there's times when the cameras are just running, and I'm just trying to position myself in front of the camera while I'm reeling in a fish.
Yep.
You just got to do it, and you got, and I'm going to try to do this with archery season. It's tough. Yeah. It's not like you're sitting in here in the studio and you're just pressing buttons and talking to a chat room or talking to you on Skype.
Exactly. This is tough enough, but yeah, you're right, because again, you're not in a controlled environment. It's a lot more challenging, and also you're out wildlife, you're fishing, you don't know what's going to happen, so you got to keep those cameras running. But I'm amazed. Like you mentioned the iPhone. And a lot of people have iPhones or even a late model smartphone. And frankly, we talk, like, I think you hit it right on the head. We talk a lot about using the equipment you have. I think I did a show recently about maximizing what you have. We talked about that on other shows, and that's a mistake I see a lot of people make. I think they look for the equipment right away. They think, oh, another piece of software or another. He went somewhere else. See, there, Steven disappeared. There he goes.
I had to kill that bird. There was a bird that was coming by. No, I'm just kidding.
But you raised a good point, Steven. I don't think a lot of people really maximize what they have and realize what they have. Like, I have my iPhone right here. I mean, it is a really powerful camera and really high quality. I mean, the latest iPhone's 4K. You can get up to 4K. And I was amazed at the level of the quality of the audio, which was absolutely, and being outdoors, which is absolutely amazing. And it's like, I thought, oh man, he must have wireless labs, or he must have some type of boom on, a stick mic on a boom. And in fact, that's what these shows would have. They would have an audio guy just doing audio, holding a boom, and a shotgun mic, and trying to get the audio, and have multiple cameras. But again, you're getting incredible quality with just an iPhone and a GoPro and another cheaper, sports camera. And there's an advantage to that too, because you didn't pay a lot of money. So if something happens to that, you're able to take a little more risk with that. So I think that and we hear it a lot, Stephen. Where people like, oh, what software did you use? Oh, what camera you use? And they're so concerned about the tech. It's like, well, do you have one of these, and do you have a computer? Well, and have you done any video? No. Well, maybe that's a good place to start. And you're doing an entire show, and it's really well put together, acquiring the footage, and then a lot of it, again, editing, putting together, pacing. But the actual raw footage, I mean, you could do quite a bit with what you got there.
Well, and I know you showed the clip of the Arrow Pullers episode 2, but if anybody wants to go back and watch this episode, and I'm not saying that just to solicit it, I mean, I do want people to watch it, but if you go back and watch just the intro, that whole intro, I did it on my iPhone sitting and watching TV, with video footage that I had on my phone that I shot, and I did it in iMovie on my iPhone, Marty. I didn't even put it on the computer. The whole intro, music and all, the ducking, everything was all done on my iPhone, and I think it looks pretty darn good considering it was something that was done on the iPhone, and I'm pretty proud of it, and that's kind of why I want to use it. But a lot of this stuff can be done just with iMovie on your Mac, or if you have an editor on your Windows box. That episode 2 took me about 4 or 5 hours to edit clips down, go through it, make sure I was putting the comparable clip, like when I'd switch to another camera, making sure it's actually in time and it's not like, he's doing something else in the shot and I'm cutting to a reeling in shot. So there's a lot of things that you got to take into consideration, as you know, when you're doing editing, and I'm still learning. I mean, I told you there's some things I'd like to tweak with it. There's some things that I would change, but you learn from that.
Yep.
And like I said, I feel like I'm starting all over again, trying to build a brand.
Yep.
And trying to do the things that I know how to do. But I know it's worth it because there's some videos and stuff that I've done out there with just reviews for firearms and things like that. As being an outdoors person, I'm into firearms, and I was trying to look for the best holster for my firearm, and I purchased some holsters, and I did an honest review, and it's got over 75,000 views on YouTube. It's the #1 holster review video on YouTube right now.
Wow.
And I was just being honest. And if you look at the majority of the comments, I mean, you get some morons here and there, but the majority of the comments are, I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate your just, like you always tell me, you're just yourself. And that's what people appreciate about it. And I think that's kind of the approach we've all taken with the arrow pullers. We haven't tried to sit there and go, oh, well, we have to be dressed really nice and talk about the outdoors and be super professional. We can be professional with the work that we do behind the scenes, but we can be ourselves in front of the camera and enjoy ourselves and enjoy what we're doing, because that's the most important part with being a sportsman and being out and fishing and hunting. If you can't enjoy yourself and you're just doing it just to get footage, you might as well stop. It's just like broadcasting. If you're going out there with the intent to make money but you don't enjoy it, you might as well just stop, because you're going to end up hating it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the one thing that I really want to emphasize, you mentioned, again, you're starting from scratch here. So you have built up over close to 10 years a really solid audience as far as on tech and video production and that type of thing, and do 2 shows a week and had done other shows in the past. And I think you're proving a really good point as far as, okay, you're someone with a big audience. You could, you're not stopping right there. That you have this interest in outdoors. You're starting out like everyone else. It's no different, and you're right with everyone else. And you're very candid and very transparent, saying it's going to take some time. It's not overnight. I mean, how many times we talk about this, Stephen, off camera? It's like, man, how many times we see, I think people expect this overnight success. And it may be that they really don't love what they do. So I think that is the first thing. But it just takes time. You got to stay with it, and you got to have long time horizon. And frankly, the journey part is the reason why you do it. It's the fun part. It's like you said, starting what you have, build gradually. You don't have to do all this fancy stuff, right? And the other thing is, I think people look at us maybe as fairly advanced, but we both said this, that I'm always learning. I'm always in this learning phase. Right? I don't consider myself an expert, because I kind of see expert, and maybe other people have different interpretations, but I see expert as maybe the end of the road, like you're the pinnacle, and I don't think I'll ever get there. I'll always think there's something new to learn, and hopefully that brings some inspiration and hope to people that's part of the fun, is like I'm always, and even since I've known you, I built this out. I got a lot more work. I continue to build the studio out. I want to do all these different things. We're still fiddling around with workflow, and that's half the battle, is getting things dialed in, trying different things, and making that progress where you look like, if you do your shows and look a year back, hopefully you see some progress there. That's really kind of what you want to see, And I know it's the same with you.
It's like we were talking earlier, and you said, well, you were kind of joking, because we see the word expert being tossed around like it's yesterday's laundry. And one of the things that you said, well, you're an expert. And I said, no, I'm aspiring to be one. And that's the truth. It's okay if people want to call me an expert, but I'm constantly learning. And I agree with you. I think if you consider yourself an expert, per se, you're essentially putting yourself in a position where potentially you're saying, well, I don't need to learn anything else. And I disagree with that statement, because I think that everybody, no matter what field you're in, you have to learn. Otherwise, if you stop learning, you're no good to yourself and you're no good to anybody else. And so I don't ever want to be put into that box. I'm learning something new every day, even just wiring this up just for this show. I love a challenge.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a challenge.
And it's funny because you mentioned that wiring up for the show. I mean, I was working with you and I was seeing, we were testing some stuff out, and And that's kind of we were having fun with it, and we were looking forward to the show tonight. And it's like, wiring. It's a different approach, different setting. People are normally used to seeing you, and people used to seeing one part. We were saying people used to seeing one part of your studio, that one part where you do weekly roundup and broadcast now, but you have a whole different section of the studio, and it's pretty versatile space you've built there, and you're kind of seeing a different side. And it's really up to your individual creativity, but and I was going to say, I lost my train of thought, but I think what it comes down to is you always want to be, it just takes a while, like
It does.
I get a kick out of and we see this where don't expect to buy a piece of software. And like, I'll use the Photoshop example. If you need graphics, or you want to be do graphics, and Photoshop is recognized as one of the better graphics packages, right? But it's a very complex piece of software, but very versatile and very has a lot of utility. But don't expect to be an automatic expert, right, when you buy it. I mean, it takes time to learn the tool, and you have to design sense and all that stuff. And I think people think that just buying an app or buying a piece of software is going to make them an expert and make them be able to, in this case, video or even a tool in the outdoors, like a bow and arrow or a piece of hunting equipment. You still got to learn how to use the tool. It takes time. I mean, I saw you with the one of your passions is archery. And it's not like you can just pick up a bow and arrow and just start being an archery expert. It takes a lot of time and effort, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's something I have to credit like one of my partners, Floyd. I mean, he really got me into the whole archery thing 4 years ago. I had purchased a crossbow, and for those that aren't familiar with it, if you watch Ancient Times, it basically looks like a rifle, and it's got the bow on top, and you slide the arrow essentially into it, and you look down a scope and you pull the trigger at an animal once you get your sights sighted in. And he's like, oh man, you got to take up a real bow. You got to be do one that you pull back, and it's so much more fun. We can go out and shoot 3D, but it's going to take some practice. And I remember buying it in July. With him, Floyd says, well, we can go out now. He said, but if you practice, I think you could be good enough to shoot come October. And one thing I could say for him was he was somebody that would stand by my side, answer any question I have, kind of like what I do with broadcasting. And him and I would go out every Saturday. We would shoot 3 or 4 rounds of 3D targets. And I mean, I remember I shot 200 or 300 arrows the first day I had it. I couldn't move. He would laugh because the next day I couldn't pull my bow back 10 times without my shoulder hurting. And because I overdid it.
Yep.
But I was so eager, Marty. It's like anything else that I get my hands on.
Yep.
If somebody puts a challenge in front of me, I'm going to go after it. And I'm going to listen to the people. And he would tell me stuff that he'd say, okay, well, this is the way you want to stand. This is the way you want to hold your bow. This is the way you want to look. This is what you're looking for. And I would listen and I would pay attention. And I attribute a lot of my success to that because, I have to put in the time. He gave me the necessary tools and instruction for me to go ahead and practice. And once I did that, now I'm able to show people how to shoot and do things like that. But I still had to put in the time. I had to learn the bow. I had to learn the feel of the bow. I had to learn where my limitations were. Because he could tell me this is going to work, but like he said, it may not work for me just because it works for him.
Yep.
And does that sound kind of familiar, like when we talk about broadcasting?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not an overnight thing. Anything worth doing well takes a lot of time. Well, anything you want to do well, let's put it that way, takes a lot of time. It just doesn't. I mean, and again, this is not to discourage anybody from getting started. I think there's two things here. One, getting started is a big hurdle for a lot of people, and we'll talk, video and live video, that type of thing. We talk about, working with what you have. Get started. That's the most important thing. But then you want to iterate as you go, and just take small steps. As long as you're moving the ball, you use a sports analogy, moving the ball down the field 1 yard at a time. That's right. That's the best way to do it, because then you really learn how things work. We've done a lot of troubleshooting, Stephen, right? And the reason why we can do it successfully is because we know how our stuff works. We take the time to learn how it works, and that's same thing with the outdoors, same thing with video, and you're combining these two disciplines together. And again, there's no magic app, no magic sauce, but if you just put the time in, it's a pretty simple message, really. And I would imagine we'll continue to preach that as long as we're doing shows,
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, even with a bow, you can't just pick it up and shoot the arrow and expect it to be on the bullseye or at the target that you want it. You have to learn how to sight your bow in. Just like you were talking about with software, you can't just sit down and start using a TriCast or a Wirecast or a vMix or whatever it is that you're using. Well, you have to learn how it works.
Yep.
And you have to fine tune it, and you have to learn how to maintain it, so that way every time you sit down at it, it's flawless because you can make it work. And I spend a lot of time, I feel like, with the outdoor stuff, because certain things I didn't grow up with. I didn't learn until now, how to do a lot of this stuff, and I'm learning from these guys. So I feel like for me to pick up lost time, I have to put some time in and learn it. And my wife will tell you, there's times her and I go out. I've gotten her into it. Now my daughter, we'll go out and shoot 100 arrows every night, for a couple nights in a row. It depends if it's warm or not.
Yep.
But come the end of August, Floyd will tell you, these guys will tell you, come the end of August, we are hardcore. Every chance we get, we pick up that bow, and we're getting ready and prepped for archery opening in October, because you can't just go out October 1st and expect to get something if you've never done it. It's like the guy, Marty, that goes to do a production, hasn't touched the equipment until the time he goes to do it, and everything goes wrong, and he asks himself why.
Yep.
Learn your craft. Spend the time.
It's crazy, Stephen, because both of us. I know that we go through these pre-show rituals. We set up our equipment. You showed it recently, as far as just, I think, a 10-minute procedure of just powering everything on. That's not even the whole system check, but I know you, when you start your show, you're starting at least a half hour early, getting things powered up. Probably even before that, obviously, before you actually go live on the stream. But you do almost a half hour pre-show. And it's entertaining and all, but really the main purpose of it is to get the guests in, make sure everything's set up. Now, most of the time, it's either myself, Mike, or Keith Barrett. We're all used to it, professional, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there's a method there, and you want to make sure everything's there. And if everything's working right, then it's a little longer pre-show, big deal. You're ready to go. But there's plenty of things go wrong, and then you can solve a lot of these issues. But it's just prep and ready to go. Just putting the work in. That's really the bottom line.
Well, and one of the things with even this show, you and we spent some time the one night. I wanted to see what you thought of the background and everything like that. And you're like, well, there's really heavy distortion on it. I could probably fix it up for you. So we changed it, and then we added the audio to it and everything like that. But then even today, I asked you, I said, well, what time do you want? What time do you need me to be ready? You said, 7:30, 7:45, because you have everything dialed in. I was up here at 7 o'clock getting my lights warmed up. And this is what people don't understand with green screens. You got to, if you're using fluorescents and halogens, you got to get them warmed up so that they're at the optimal temperature. Otherwise, your settings that you set for your green screen are all going to be off.
Yep.
And you're going to have to sit there and fine tweak it. So I come up here, I get these lights fired up for about 10 minutes, make sure that they're warmed up. Make sure that they're quote-unquote burning, as I like to say. Once they're burning and I know that they're at the true light, then I start adding everything else. I get the cameras turned on so that the iris isn't adjusting with it. And most of the time it's on manual setting. So the first thing it looks at is how the setting is. So that could throw all that off.
Yep.
But I want it set up so when you call me, I'm ready to go. You're not sitting there, oh, I can't hear you. Oh, wait. Nope, your camera's not on. Oh, what's going on? I don't have to do that with any of you guys.
Yep.
You shouldn't have to do that with me. I want to do my due diligence to make sure that I'm ready. And I would say that to anybody. I don't care what outlet you're going to be doing, outdoors, indoors, studio, talk show, courtroom. I don't care. You have to do your due diligence. It's not anything Marty can do. It's my responsibility as a guest coming on his show to know my gear and know that I'm set up correctly for when he calls.
Yeah, and it's funny. Brad asked a question in the chat room. I just know, do you guys leave your equipment powered on and warmed up? I frankly don't, but I think that we were just describing our setup routines as far as I think for us, I mean, and in a professional environment, network environment like ESPN, I used to work there. That equipment never gets powered down because it's always being used 24/7 anyway. So that has a lot to do with it, but it doesn't get powered down because it's a whole big complicated operation. For our operations, we're a lot simpler. So we just leave lead time, like we're describing, to get our stuff powered up. Like you said, Stephen, that's a good point about the fluorescent lights. Got to get them warmed up, make sure they're ready to go, make sure your white balance is ready to go. Just, again, leave yourself some buffer there. How many times we see it with now with the technology where anybody can go live, and this whole idea of pushing the button, which is great, but you're running the risk, depending on how professional you want to be, as far as something go wrong because you're not really prepared. So it's always good to have that pre-time. I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're a little over an hour. I do want to get to, I want to show everyone where they can get more information about arrow pullers. So this is your website here, and that's the address, arrowpullers.com. And Stephen, looks like you got videos here. Looks like you're kind of just starting it up here. I'm flipping to the video section. I'm not sure if you have anything there.
Yeah, we have more videos than reviews right now. We're still
there
in the
you go.
process
So
of
there's
doing
your
that,
there's your videos, and hopefully looks like you got a store section there coming soon, which is encouraging. So arrowpullers.com, definitely check that out. We're excited to see, kind of go along the journey with you as far as arrow pullers, and we know this is a passion of yours, so that's going to be exciting. I also want to let everyone know that obviously you can watch our show, btslive.com, and the bit.ly link there is for our email list, bit.ly/bts email. If you haven't signed up, I would encourage you to do so, and the reason I do that is just both Stephen and I are very passionate about what we do. We're also passionate about owning as much of the process as possible. We both have Facebook pages and websites, and we broadcast out to multiple destinations, but it gives us an opportunity to kind of make sure that we can get a hold of you guys in case something happens with Facebook or whatever. I'm not going to spam you. I haven't sent out any email yet, and I have plans to hopefully send out a newsletter or whatever, but I'm going to use that very sparingly. So if you haven't signed up, that's bit.ly/BTS email. Our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/BTS Live Show. Encourage you to be in there. There are a lot of people in the chat that are in there. Brad and Walter are both moderators of the group. I know Tim is in the group. A great group of people in there, including Steven. Steven's a moderator. He's in the group. So certainly be part of that. If you haven't already joined, you're more than welcome. We allow everyone in there. I do want to promote Mark's channel. Mark's not here, but he does college football videos. He's hot in the season here. He's doing a lot of previews. So if you're into college football, he's doing a lot of top 10 previews of the upcoming seasons, the teams, positions. He's at youtube.com/MarkRogersTV. Mark's been doing this for a number of years now. He's actually getting some traction. He's going out in other publications. He's an on-air professional. He does a great job, knows the sport inside and out, very, very passionate, does a tremendous job. So if you're into college football, I certainly encourage you to check that out. Last but not least, of course, Stephen and his other endeavor, the techbuzz.net. I encourage you to check that out, and I say this all the time. I have Stephen on the screen here, so I'm going to embarrass him, but he is my inspiration for just what you're seeing here. My 24/7 streaming of replays, starting this show. He has been a lot of inspiration to me and a lot of people, and I don't mean to embarrass him, but it's true. He's a great person, very generous with his time and helpfulness, and he's very encouraging to the community. We're very happy to have him as part of our community, and it's just great. So techbuzz.net/live for the shows. Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern for a weekly roundup, and Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern for broadcast now. Now, I know, Stephen, you have some summer plans, and I think you're going to go on hiatus for a little while. Why don't you fill everyone in as far as kind of the plans for the next couple months, because I know that you have some travel there and everything.
Yeah, so I'm going to be traveling for work, and then I also have vacation coming up, and there's one of the weeks my son's birthday is on. So talking with some of the co-hosts, they've got plans and stuff with business and vacation and other events that they've kind of agreed to. So we just said, you know what, summer, a lot of people are going on vacation. So let's take the month of August off. Come back in September fully strong. Everybody's going back to, the kids are going back to school. Everybody's coming back from vacation. And let's just come back and do the show. So we're going to take that time, but I'm still going to be busy because we've got a lot of stuff to do for arrow pullers. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that work on the side. And there's some things in the studio that I need to tweak a little bit because I've got some wires that need fixing and things like that. So I like to take that downtime, Marty, to do some maintenance, but also work on these projects. And I know Floyd and Drew and myself, we're going to be working hard at trying to put some more content up on arrow pullers, more reviews of products that we use. And right now we're self-funded, so we don't have companies throwing stuff our way. So everything you're going to get from us is our honest review of whatever we're doing. So it's taken me back to the early days of the Tech Buzz. So I'm kind of excited. It gives me that bubbly feeling all over again.
Absolutely. It's great. And it's great. I know the guys and everyone watching in the chat. We have a lot of regulars here. I want to thank everyone in the chat watching the show today. You guys are fantastic. You guys are the reason why we do this show. I know Stephen feels the same way. But it's going to be great to watch your journey, Stephen, with this new project. I mean, I used to camp a lot, and I have some interest in the outdoors. And I know that Brad, I forget who was mentioning, Brad or somebody was mentioning that, this is a new thing for him. Or I think Garrett was mentioning it in one of our discussions. And he was mentioning that, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see something new. I don't know anything about the outdoors, but if Steven's involved, then I learned something new, and that I think you maybe gain a new audience or gain a new perspective as far as hunting and fishing and the outdoor life, which is great. So it's going to be great to see you do that, Steven. I want to thank you for being my guest, my co-host today. As far as our show, we should be back next week. August can probably be a little dicey. I'll have more announcements on that. I'm going to be doing some traveling and doing some actual work for my company, video production work. So it's going to probably interrupt the schedule for a while. And August is probably a good time to take a break. So if I do take a break, I'll certainly be back in full strength in September. But I think we'll see you again next week. Watch the Facebook group for our show, but I believe we'll be back next week at 8 o'clock. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And hopefully we should be seeing you next week. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.